Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Josh Vogt, publisher of Personal Fitness Professional. And in just a few minutes, our presenter today, Carol Ann, a health and fitness entrepreneur and Fit Tours head trainer and education team leader, will bring you today's webinar titled Fueling Peak Performance, the Power of Wheat in Nutrition. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a couple housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with all of you once the replay link is available, either by tomorrow morning or even yet later today. We would like to encourage any questions you might have about the presentation, and don't feel you have to wait to the end of the webinar. Simply ask your question in the chat and we will either answer it right away or get to it during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. Today's webinar was made possible by our partner, Wheat Foods Council. The Wheat Foods Council is an industry-wide partnership dedicated to increasing domestic wheat foods consumption through nutrition information, research, education, and promotional programs. And because of their efforts today, all live attendees can earn free CEs from AFA, ISSA, NASM, and NSCA. Thank you, Wheat Foods Council, for making this happen. Okay, Carol Ann, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Well, welcome everybody. I'm super excited to be with you guys today. I know you're super busy. You've got clients that you are probably taking a lunch break right now. And so I'm honored that you guys are here with me talking about this really important topic of fueling peak performance. So continue to throw in the chat box where you're from. I'm coming at you from Bishop, Georgia. So I don't know if you know where Bishop is. I'm outside of Athens, Georgia, home of University of Georgia UGA Bulldogs, and outside of Atlanta. So I see a couple of people from Atlanta, Georgia. So welcome. How great is that you guys are able to earn CECs with this webinar? So that is great. So I kind of get an idea of who is with me today. So I'm going to throw up, Josh, if you'll throw up a poll up here, and I want to know what best describes your profession or your area of expertise. And if you have a small screen, make sure you scroll down because there are two questions on here. The first one is, I want to know what best describes your profession. And then secondly, have you thought of whole wheat specifically as fuel for optimizing fitness or even athletic performance? Have you even thought about wheat? So we'll give you a couple of seconds here to answer those questions. And I just kind of want to get an idea of who we have here today. All right.
All right, Carol Ann, I'll end it now and then I'll share the results for you here.
Okay, great. All right, so we have 42% of y'all are personal trainers. We have some sports nutritionists in here, studio owners, health and fitness educators, healthcare providers, and then we have some group fitness instructors. Great. And then the next question was, it's pretty close, 64% yes and 36% no. Okay, that gives me a really good idea of where we're at today. So we're going to be talking about fueling peak performance, the power of wheat in nutrition. Now, I know that this is might be a controversial topic, being with nutrition trends that happen in the industry. We've got a lot of people that are all about the carbohydrates. We've got people that are not at all about the carbohydrates. They're more in the protein and the fat. And so I really felt like I'm very passionate about this topic. And especially the majority of y'all on here are personal trainers. You are working with clients. We've got educators out there, but bottom line is you're working with people. You're working with people who are seeking your expertise in this area How can they get the best out of either they're a fitness enthusiast that just want to improve their fitness journey? So whether they're taking fitness classes or they're part of a running group or they're playing pickleball or playing tennis, or you have those athletes, those high school athletes, the college athletes. You maybe even be working with elite athletes. So they're always looking for an edge. How can they get peak performance? So we're going to talk about the role that wheat has in all of this. So first of all, this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk, here are the learning objectives. So first of all, what is wheat? What is wheat's role in fueling for endurance and power sports and activities? Wheat's role in maximizing recovery. So not only are your people interested in getting the maximum amount of energy and their peak performance, but after it's all said and done, how are they going to recover quickly and efficiently so that they can go back at it again? And then what is wheat's role in optimizing overall health? You might not even have an individual that's even interested in doing any sort of sports or activities, but they just want to be healthy. So they're coming to you for your expertise and just getting great overall health. And then how do we integrate wheat into an overall diet plan while reaching those fitness goals? So let's dive right in. First of all, what is wheat? What is wheat? Well, it's part of our American song, American the Beautiful, amber waves of grain, right? So why not start there? So what is wheat? Wheat is a grain which it belongs to the grass family. And a grain is defined as a plant that produces a dry edible seed. And it can be called a kernel or it can be called a berry. And so wheat is part of the grain, part of the grass family. And there are many species of wheat, and together they make up the genus called Triticum. And it's estimated that wheat was cultivated some 9,000 to 10,000 years ago in Euphrates, which is now what we know as Iraq. And wheat is grown around the world and it adapts to a wide range of environmental conditions. So we've got wheat from the Arctic Circle to tropic temperatures. But however, today's high yielding varieties, they thrive in temperate areas about 10 to 20 or 10 to 30 inches of annual rainfall. So why are we so interested in wheat? Well, the Midwest is producing wheat like like nobody's business. So America, United States, we produce a lot of wheat. As a matter of fact, in 2024, the United States is estimated to produce 1.98 billion bushels of wheat. And that is up, and that is all across about 37.9 million acres of harvested land. So we produce a lot of wheat. So that is just kind of a background of what wheat is, but let's take a look at the plant. There are four parts of the wheat plant. And first of all, we have the head up here at the top, and that contains the kernels or the wheat seeds. So remember, we talked about a plant that produces kernels or berries. It's an edible seed, and that is all in the head. Then the stem of wheat, it supports the head and it helps transport the nutrients and the water throughout the plant all the way up to the head. Then we have the leaves. It's responsible for photosynthesis. And as you can recall from your junior high science class or biology class, photosynthesis is the process in which green plants produce simple carbohydrates by using carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and a light source. And that light source is typically coming from the sun. And then at the bottom, you have the roots. And this is the anchor of the plant. It anchors the plant into the soil. It absorbs the water from the ground and it absorbs the nutrients from the soil and it transports it to the stem, which then takes it to the head. So there's your overall wheat plant. Now, what I love about the wheat plant is now we're going to take it all the way down to that kernel. And this is that edible seed. This is where we get the wheat. And there's about 50 kernels in one head of wheat. And that can be up to 17,000 kernels in just 1 pound. So we're going to take a closer look at this kernel and some of the the compounds that make up this kernel. We are familiar. We hear about these components of that kernel. So we're going to start from the outer part of the kernel and we're going to work our way in. So the outer layer of that kernel is bran, and it contributes to about 14.5% of the kernel weight. And it can also be purchased separately. So if you're using bran, we talk a lot about bran and how healthy bran is. You can also purchase it separately. It is the outer layer, and it contains the largest amount of insoluble fiber, the B vitamins, trace minerals, and it does have a small amount of protein in that bran. Then, working our way inward, we have the endosperm, and this makes up about 83% of the kernel weight. And it is the middle layer, and it contains mostly protein and carbohydrates. And it has about a small amount of B vitamins, iron, and that soluble fiber. And then we have the germ, and it's the most intersection of the seed, and it only contributes about 2.5% of that kernel weight. And this germ is the embryo, or it is the sprouting section of the seed. And it is, again, the most inner part of the kernel. And this is where we can find trace minerals. It has great sources of unsaturated fats, B vitamins, antioxidants, and it also has about a minimal amount of high quality protein. So that is your kernel. And you should be pretty familiar with bran, endosperm, and germ. So you hear about wheat germ a lot. Now we have 6 classes of wheat. So if you are wondering how in the world or what the different ways that we can produce some of our foods, so like pastas and breads, and there are specific types of wheat that is better for making pasta over making bread, and what kind of bread you can make. So there are 6 classes of wheat. And the first class is hard, wet, red. That's hard to say right in a row. Hard, red, winter wheat. Now, this is the largest class produced each year. And it has a medium amount of protein level content, and it's used to produce bread, rolls, and also sweets and all purpose flour. So that is your hard, red, winter class. Then you have your soft red winter, and it contains the highest percentage of protein. And it's good for making wheat for bread and superior milling and baking characteristics. So that is your soft red winter. Then you have your hard red spring, and this contains also the highest percentage of protein for your bread, and it also has great characteristics for milling and baking. Then we have the hardest US wheat, and that is your durum. And it is high in protein. Now, we're familiar with durum because it is made in pasta. So we make pasta with durum. Then you have your hard white, and this wheat is milder, it's sweeter in flavor, it has medium protein, and it's used mainly in yeast breads and hard rolls and tortillas and oriental noodles. Then we have soft white, and it has low protein, but it's soft white wheat products like flour, baking cakes, crackers, cookies, pastries. And so a lot of times when you hear people saying that they've got to cut out carbs, it's sad that they throw everything in one category of I'm cutting out all carbs. More than likely, they're probably talking about the soft white flour, is what they're most likely talking about, but they misspeak and they throw it all into that one category. But it's really interesting to know that we have 6 different classes of wheat, and they're used in specific and different ways. So, when you're looking at the overall nutritional value of a wheat kernel, we can break it down. So, whole grain wheat, it can be rich in antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, and fiber. And so, over here on this figure over here, we have it broken down very specifically. So, you've got a specific amount of protein, total fats, carbohydrates, and even your dietary fiber. Then we can break it down even more into your vitamins and into your minerals. So when you're looking at it from kind of like a bird's eye view, 12% of a wheat kernel is made up of water. And then 70% is carbohydrates, which is going to be really valuable and very instrumental when we're talking about athletic performance. And then 12% is protein. There is a little bit of fat. We've got 2% fat, 1.8% minerals, 2.2% fiber. And then there are traces of thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, and small amounts of vitamin A. Then there are small amounts of phytochemicals. Now, phytochemicals is the plant's way of protecting itself from fungus or from bacteria. So there will be little traces of those phytochemicals. So that is the overall nutritional value of one wheat kernel, which is super cool. Look at all that value. All right, now I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room. So let's address that now. And I love this little cartoon. Sometimes, even if I stand in the middle of the room, no one acknowledges me. So we're going to acknowledge the elephant in the room. And that is, well, I've got a lot of people that are sensitive to wheat and they might have a wheat allergy. So let's talk about that. Let's address that. So you might have a client or you yourself may even be sensitive to wheat, but let's talk about what those different sensitivities are. So the first one is fructose sensitivity. Now, fructose, it is a type of sugar and it gets fermented in the intestines instead of being properly digested. And it can sometimes cause symptoms like bloating, gurgling, abdominal pain after consuming that fructan from the wheat. So it gets broken down and fermented into the intestines without digesting. Then you also have gluten sensitivity. Now, gluten is a protein in wheat that can trigger allergic reactions in some individuals, but not all, but just some. Then you also have wheat allergens, and this could present itself as a skin rash, or there might be some stomach discomfort, nausea, runny nose, headaches, asthma attacks. So there is wheat allergen as well. Now, those are some sensitivities and allergies, but you could have specific medical conditions connected to wheat. So you have celiac disease. Now, this is an autoimmune disorder and it is genetic in nature. And what happens is that ingestion of gluten leads to damage of the small intestine, but this is a medical condition. Then you have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. Now, this is different from gluten allergy. And the cause is yet to be understood, but it does trigger similar symptoms to those of celiac disease. And so those symptoms can be stomach pain, eczema, headache, foggy mind, joint pain, and numbness in the legs, arms, or fingers. Now, there is a medical condition, believe it or not, it's called wheat dependent exercise induced anaphylaxis, or WDEIA. Now, the reason why I'm drawing our attention to this is because if you are a personal trainer or a group fitness instructor, you're working with people who exercise. Now, this is less common, but it is documented. And those who suffer from this, they exercise after ingesting wheat may cause anaphylaxis. So just to be aware of that. Now, all of that to say it's very trendy right now for people to be gluten intolerant, right? So if they are gluten intolerant, we have a lot of people say, I'm cutting out gluten from my diet. And so we want to educate people. Well, why are you cutting out gluten? Have you been told that you have a gluten sensitivity? Do you have celiac disease? So many times when people are eliminating things out of their diet, it's just because they're just trying something to figure out whether they can get an edge on their athletic performance, or maybe they're trying to lose weight. They may have inflammation, whatever the case may be. They may be having health issues and they're not quite sure what the source is. So when they're cutting out gluten, or we're cutting things out of the diet, they might not even know why. So I wanted to address that elephant in the room to talk about, yes, very well aware of documented sensitivity to wheat. And we need to address that if that is somebody that you're working with. But let's focus our energy on all of the good things that we can do. So it is important to have a balanced nutrition for athletes and active individuals. So why is nutrition so important for performance? We are doing such a good job in our industry educating people about nutrition. But and yes, your people can go on Dr. Google and research all of this stuff. But guess what? There's so much information out there that your people are looking to you for the answers. You're going to be the person who can translate all of this information to them and educate them about proper nutrition and the importance of balanced nutrition in their diet. So let's just do an overview. This may be new information, but it could also be an overview when we're talking about nutrition. And so we have 7 nutrients that we want to take in, and we never want to eliminate one food group. We never want to eliminate one of the nutrients from the diet. And so there are a lot of diets out there that will say eliminate one of the nutrients. And so we don't want to do that. So we're coming from a position of a balanced nutritional diet. So we have 7 nutrients. We can categorize the majority of those nutrients as either macronutrients or micronutrients. Now, macronutrients, what is special to macronutrients is that they yield energy. What does that mean? It yields energy. All that means is that there's a caloric value to each of the macronutrients. So we have carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Now, carbohydrates, for 1 gram of carbohydrate, you have 4 calories. So it yields an energy level of 4 calories. Protein, 1 gram of protein is equivalent to 4 calories. And then 1 gram of fat is equivalent to 9 calories. Now, why is that important to know? Well, when you're working with a client and you're trying to determine how many calories they need to eat in a day to consume, how many calories are they burning in their activity, you're determining their basal metabolic rate. When you take their total caloric intake, and you're determining the percentage of that total caloric value of what needs to be carbohydrates, protein, and fat, then you need to know how many calories in a number that they need to get. Now, I will say this is an entire nutrition course to go over all this information. So if this is new to you, I encourage you to take a nutrition course, but this is just an overview or a review of the caloric value of our macronutrients. Then we have micronutrients, and those are your vitamins and your minerals. Now, micronutrients, they do not have energy value. There are no calories assigned to vitamins and minerals. They work in the body to optimize performance or to function. So vitamins can be broken down into fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins. And so the vitamins that are water-soluble, either you're going to use them or lose them. We don't store water-soluble vitamins. So that is why If you're purchasing mega vitamins or ultravitamins, we probably don't need all of those vitamins. And so when we're eliminating and our urine is bright yellow, that was just in a very expensive pee. We just eliminated all of those vitamins because we didn't need all those vitamins. So then the fat soluble vitamins, they are stored in the fat. And we have to watch out that we're not over consuming the fat soluble vitamins. So A, D, E, K, those are your fat soluble vitamins. And then your B's and your C vitamin, those are your water soluble vitamins. And then you have your minerals, and they work together to help your body function optimally. Now, the other two nutrients that we have fiber and we have water. Now, they do not have caloric value either. So that's why they're kind of in their own category. Fiber could be listed as a subconstruct of carbohydrates, but there's no caloric value. Fiber is a great way to add bulk to your waste so that you can eliminate the waste out of your body. And water also helps to flush out the waste in your body. So the carbohydrates is a really huge role in fueling for athletes or for your fitness enthusiasts. So carbohydrates play a major role. Carbohydrates is your body's main source of energy, and wheat falls within that carbohydrate category. It is a nutrient source for performance. Now, when we're looking at carbohydrates and when we're looking at that nutrient rich fuel for endurance, speed, agility, and power, we first want to look at the carbohydrates in terms of a slow release energy supply from carbohydrates. And this is what athletes need most. These are your complex carbohydrates. Wheat is an excellent source of a complex carbohydrate. It is slow releasing energy in the body. And we typically want to get that from whole grain wheat carbohydrates. But we also want to combine our carbohydrates with protein and a modest amount of fat, such as nuts and oil seeds. And we want to have a balanced meal. So with every meal, we want to have a good source of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And what this does is this helps to eliminate that huge spike in blood sugar. So, or that real fast increase in blood sugar levels. And we call that the glycemic peaks. And so having a well-balanced meal is better distribution of energy throughout the sports activity. It could be, like I said, it doesn't even need to be a sports activity. It could be whatever activity your person is doing. So it could be your fitness enthusiast. It could be your recreational runner. It could be your recreational pickleball player. So whatever the case may be, that balanced meal is what we're looking for. So let's take a look at carbohydrates. This is probably, gosh, this is like my favorite topic to talk about. Do you guys love talking about nutrition and how it just throw it in the chat box? What do you love most about talking about nutrition with your client? Are you pro carbohydrate? Are you pro protein? Are you pro fat? Just throw that in the chat box and just get some buzz going. I'm going to talk about being pro carbohydrate. Remember, the role of carbohydrate is it is the body's main source of energy. So when you have individuals that are talking about, I'm going to eliminate or cut out my carbohydrates, well, they're misspeaking. What we really need to educate them on is we really need to be saying, I'm going to cut out my refined sugar. I'm cutting out processed foods. That really needs to be the language, because if you look at carbohydrates, yes, is your whole grains. It is also fruits and vegetables. Those are carbohydrates. So 60% of an athlete's diet needs to come from carbohydrates. And the amount of carbohydrates an athlete needs depends on their training intensity. It depends on the type of workout they're doing and the timing during their season, during their off season. So all of these things play into how we're going to fuel. So let's take a look at carbohydrates. Now, if you're reading through the literature, you'll see that it is abbreviated as CHO. So that's very common in the literature if you read that. Now, when you consume carbohydrates, It is the most broken down form of carbohydrates in the body is glucose. Now, glucose is the immediate source of energy in the blood. And it's immediate. So when your body is moving and you've got those high demands in exercising whatever the sport activity is, and your body needs immediate energy, when you consume carbohydrates, it's going to go immediately to what your body demands. That is your immediate source of energy in the blood. It's broken down to glucose. Now, when that energy is met, then there's no more need for that glucose. Then carbohydrates is stored as glycogen in your muscle and in your liver. Now, what is really interesting about this is you can only store so much. You can only store about 1,500 to 2,000 calories of glycogen, which is about enough to fuel about 90 to 120 minutes of vigorous activity. I'm going to come back to that point in just a minute. That is huge. That is very important to remember. You can only store about 1,500 to 2,000 calories of glycogen in your muscle and your liver. Very important to remember. Now, the liver can store about 100 grams of glycogen, which is about 400 calories. And then your muscle tissue can store about 400 grams of glycogen, which is about 1,600 calories. So you add them up, that's about 2,000 calories. Now, let me talk about the obesity epidemic here real quick. If you are working with clients that are trying to lose weight because they're overweight and they're doing this for their health, when people say carbohydrates are making me fat, that makes me crazy. Because if you think about what is happening with carbohydrates, when you break carbohydrates down, they are stored as glycogen. They are not turned into fat. Okay. Now, I say that, but now I'm going to say this. If you overeat, if you're overeating, again, you can only store so much at a time. Then once those glycogen stores are filled up, then your your broken down form of nutrient, it has to go somewhere. So yes, then it gets stored as fat. All fat is a way of saying stored energy. Your fat stores energy. So the overconsumption of calories gets stored in your fat cells. Fat is stored energy. That's what fat is. So now let's go back to the point that I was talking about. 1,500 to 2,000 calories of glycogen is enough to fuel 90 to 120 minutes. Think about those marathon runners. Now, I'm not talking about your elite runners that are running these marathons in less than 2 hours. I'm talking about probably the people that we generally work with, your fitness enthusiasts that like to run marathons. That average length of time is going to be about 4.5 to 5 hours for that marathon. So 120 minutes, that's 2 hours. So you want to be building up that glycogen stores because we only have 2,000 calories. Once that glycogen is done, then that marathon runner needs immediate source of energy. So that's when they're going to be, sucking up the power gel, the goo and all that, because that is going to be glucose. Remember what we said, glucose is immediate source of energy. Now we're going to talk about how wheat plays a role in building up those glycogen stores. So let's talk about though, when we are building up our nutrients and we're building up for that event. So let's say we've got a marathon coming up, or it could be a 5K, or it could be not even a running event. It could be a soccer game, or it could be you're just running with your group of friends, or it could be you're getting together to play a game of tennis or basketball, whatever the case may be. Pre-exercise carbohydrates ingestion can begin 1 to 7 days leading into the exercise event. We call that carb loading. So that can begin 1 to 7 days out. carb loading. And the carb loading is trying to store glycogen. And wheat is a great complex carbohydrate to get stored as glycogen. Carbohydrate ingestion provided up to 3 to 4 hours prior to exercise increases that muscle glycogen content as well. And then during exercise, when we consume carbohydrates, it maintains the blood glucose or provides fuel oxidation, thus sparing the muscle and liver glycogen. So if we want to spare those glycogen stores, then we can consume a more immediate source of energy in glucose. So I look at that as remember, I always remember my soccer games when I was playing soccer. We would always at the halftime, they would always provide us orange slices. I was like every game we had orange slices at halftime. Why? Because they knew we needed an immediate source of glucose, and the orange slices was the one that, and plus a little bit of fiber too. That was going to give us that immediate source of energy to help preserve those glycogen stores as well so that we can finish out that soccer game. Whole wheat is a great source of energy for athletes because it provides that long lasting supply of glycogen. Cool, huh? I love that. So here is a plate of a very healthy plate for athletes to follow. Look at this half the plate, and this looks very similar to the USDA myplate.gov. So if you look over here, I'm going to get my little laser out. Over here, half the plate is fruits and vegetables. What did we say about fruits and vegetables? Those are carbohydrates. Then over here, you have a quarter of the plate, your grains and starches. This is where your whole wheat is going to fall in. And then your proteins over here, your healthy proteins here. And then over here to the right, you've got your healthier fats. And then you've got your fluids, your water, your coffee, your tea, your juice over here. Now, if you are working with individuals, a very simple formula to follow, and mind you, this is just a general formula. You are going to work specifically with that individual, knowing and understanding exactly what their activity level is, knowing how many calories they're taking in, how many calories they're exerting. So yes, you're definitely going to be working with that individual, but generally speaking, because we said 60% of the total caloric intake for your person that you're working with needs to come from carbohydrates. This looks about 60%, maybe a little bit over. But over here, you've got your proteins, and your fats could take up probably a sliver, probably half of this quarter here. But if you want to keep it very general, 60% carbohydrates, 20% protein, 20% fat is kind of where you want to be for your active individuals. And again, I say that knowing that there are specifics and you're working with that individual. So here are some meal planning strategies. So here are some examples of some whole wheat foods. So you've got bread, pita, pasta, tortilla, couscous. Then you have your flaked, your puffed, and your extruded wheat. So all three of these forms, they're commonly used in breakfast cereals and cereal snack bars. So I think of cereal, I think of like corn flakes, so flaked wheat or puffed wheat. So your puff like cocoa puffs. Now I know these have a lot of sugar in them, but I'm just trying to get us to be thinking about what is puffed. What does that mean? What is flaked? Then let's go back to our kernel, wheat bran. Wheat bran added to biscuits, cakes, muffins, and breads to increase the dietary fiber content. Wheat bran is also used as an ingredient in some breakfast cereals. So wheat bran, if we have it for breakfast a lot. Then remember the wheat germ part of that kernel. It can be added to breads, pastries, pancakes, and biscuits, or sprinkled onto yogurt, breakfast cereal, or fruit dishes to increase that B vitamin, that mineral, that protein and fiber content. Then we have semolina. This is coarsely ground endosperm. So look, we have the bran, we have the germ, and then we have the endosperm. That's all part of that kernel. And it's mainly used for making pasta. And so there's different ways that you can use semolina. and make it in different cultures. It's used also in different ways. So these are meal planning strategies using whole wheat foods. Now, there are different ways that you can consume wheat. You can consume it raw, and the main raw version is wheatgrass, and it's the young, freshly sprouted leaves of the wheat plant. Remember, we showed you the leaves over there. Now, if you've ever gone to a smoothie place and you get a shot of wheatgrass, that's exactly what the raw form is of wheat. You can also cook the wheat. It's usually cooked. And there are many different recipes that you can get in different dishes. Also, you can consume wheat in a powder, finely ground. You can put it in breads and pastas and other baked goods in your wheat flour. So when we're talking about wheat, probably the glycemic index might come to mind. And so the glycemic index is just a number that measures how quickly a food raises the blood sugar levels. And so it's on a scale from 0 to 100. So if you're wondering where whole wheat falls, it's anywhere from 45 to 69, and whole grain wheat flour is about a 45. So it's kind of right in the middle. And that's why your whole wheat products is a great source of complex carbohydrates, and it's stored as glycogen in your muscle and liver. And so that I just wanted to bring that to your attention if you're wondering about those blood glucose levels. Now, let's talk about when you are consuming your carbohydrates or when you're consuming your whole wheat products. So, we talked about how you can carb load anywhere from 1 to 7 days leading up to your event, whatever that event is. And so we can break it down to even 4 hours before, 3 hours before, 2 hours before, and even 1 hour before. And then there's your event right there. So when you're looking at how to time your carbohydrate intake, looking at 4 hours before, you want to include a low GI, which is your glycemic index carbohydrate, plus a fat, plus a protein. And that way it's going to get stored as glycogen in your muscle and in your liver. And then when you get closer to your event, you're going to consume less fat. You'll include a little bit of protein. And then 2 hours, you're going to include a high and low glycemic index carbohydrate. And then 1 hour before, you're going to consume a high GI, low fiber carbohydrate. In other words, you want to have that immediate source of glucose. Remember, glucose is your immediate source of energy. So it's a little higher on your glycemic index. So this I wanted to throw in here because if you're working with those athletes, this is how carbohydrates can fall into that. So here are just some ideas for the day of the event. Some examples here. So 3 to 4 hours, you can do scrambled eggs, potatoes, fresh vegetables, plus whole wheat toast or wrapped in a whole wheat tortilla. 2 to 3 hours, and notice that that's more of a complex carbohydrate situation with the 3 to 4 hours. 2 to 3 hours, you can do yogurt mixed with granola and wheat germ, berries and nuts. Now we're going a little bit higher on that, or a combination of higher on the GI and also lower. So you have both high and low glycemic index carbohydrates. And then 1 to 2 hours prior, whole wheat toast with peanut butter, or you can do a smoothie with wheatgrass. Now you're going to experiment with this prior to that event day. You're not going to do it for your first time around an event day. You're going to take your off-season time just to kind of experiment with this to see if the stomach can handle this. But these are some really great options for event day meal examples. Then your non-event days for breakfast, here are some examples. Whole wheat toast, a dry hard-boiled egg, blueberries, or you can do a whole wheat pancake with fruit. Or you could do a whole wheat toast containing complex carbohydrates, which give you the energy you need to run faster, lift more, push harder. And the eggs provide a high quality protein. And the natural sugar in the berries will give you some quick burning fuel. So those two are great examples of a breakfast. Snack could be Greek yogurt with wheat germs sprinkled on top. Lunch could be whole wheat veggie hummus on a sandwich. Um, Smoothie with wheatgrass could be a snack. And then dinner could be whole wheat penne pasta with marinara sauce and grilled chicken. So those are all great ideas for non-event days. Now let's talk about recovery and all that wheat can do with recovery. First of all, it can replenish the glycogen stores. So within 30 minutes to 2 hours after exercising, you want your people to consume wheat-based foods to maximize that glycogen replenishment. So aim for a carb to protein ratio of 3 to 1 for optimal recovery, like a whole wheat sandwich with lean protein. And then number two, it supports muscle recovery with protein-rich wheat products. And we want to incorporate wheat germ into recovery smoothies or sprinkle it over yogurt. Wheat germ is rich in both protein and essential vitamins such as vitamin E. And vitamin E is an antioxidant and it helps reduces exercise-induced muscle damage. So important. Then number three, boost hydration with wheat-based electrolyte snacks. So we have whole grain crackers with recovery dips such as hummus or cottage cheese. For fiber for long-term recovery and gut health, whole wheat is great for that fiber. So in regular meals throughout your training week, enhance digestive health. It in turn supports better nutrient absorption and long-term recovery. So fiber, super important that we get in that wheat. And then number five, incorporate antioxidant rich wheat foods. So make wheat germ a staple ingredient in your recovery, like in your snacks, in your smoothies, or in your oatmeal. And you benefit from its antioxidant properties. And this will help reduce your muscle soreness and it will accelerate recovery after a high intensity workout. So wheat is super important in your recovery. So here are some examples of wheat-based meals for your post-workout meal. Within 30 minutes, you can do a whole wheat pasta with lean chicken and tomato sauce. Do a side of steamed veggies. You can have a post-workout snack about 1 to 2 hours later, like wheat germ smoothie with banana, almond milk, and a scoop of protein powder. So those are some really great post-workout wheat-based meals. Now, if you are working with an individual who just wants to optimize their overall health, look at all of the great benefits that wheat provides. It reduces chronic inflammation. It prevents certain amino acids from causing inflammation in blood vessels and other parts of the body. There's what's called betaine. I had to look at that word real quick. Betaine. It alters the structure of certain amino acids and it prevents them from causing bodily inflammation. Now, betaine is in your wheat product. It is in that wheat kernel, betaine. And it also reduces inflammation, especially in your blood vessels. It improves your overall cardiovascular health. So eating whole wheat grain can provide particular health benefits for the heart. So it supplies phytocompounds. There are phytocompounds in wheat, including lignans. Now, lignans has been shown to improve heart health, and that is also found in that wheat kernel. Also, lignans help to stabilize or regulate hormone levels. So they keep the hormone levels in check, especially estrogen and insulin as normal levels. So certain hormone receptors, lignans bind to those hormone receptors to prevent an overabundance of estrogen in the body. Super, super important. I could go on and on and on. I mean, this is really super exciting about what all it can do. Here are some other benefits that it can do for overall health. There's manganese that's in wheat. It helps the body form connective tissue and bones, as well as aids with blood clotting. It helps hormone production, calcium absorption, and blood sugar regulation. Copper and iron, it promotes the production of, and transport of blood cells and oxygen through the body. You need oxygen when you're exercising, when you're performing. So that is also found in wheat. Zinc, it supports the immunity and proper development. Potassium helps to lower blood pressure. And then we've got your B vitamins, very crucial for metabolic function, like transforming those carbohydrates into glucose. Remember, glucose is that immediate source of energy, and we need that in our performance. So, optimizing overall health, lots and lots of benefits there. So, just to recap everything for fueling peak performance from wheat, we get sustained energy. Wheat's complex carbohydrates provide a steady release of energy. Remember the carbo loading. It's essential for endurance and long lasting performance. Enhanced recovering, those nutrients in wheats like B vitamins and minerals, they play a crucial role in muscle repair and recovery and also reducing that fatigue. And then the importance of balanced nutrition. Wheat offers that balance of macronutrients and fiber. Remember when we looked at that kernel, it has protein, it has fiber, it has carbohydrates, it has a little bit of fat. It supports digestion. It helps to maintain blood sugar levels and fuels that overall health. And then also we covered that we have the versatility of meal planning. So you can easily incorporate wheat into various meals and wheat products and provide the foundation for pre and post exercise nutrition. So your main takeaway today is incorporating wheat into your diet helps to optimize performance, your recovery, and stamina for athletes and active individuals, but also it helps to optimize overall health. So that's all I've got for you today, you guys. I always feel like I have so much that I want to give you. You probably feel like you're drinking from a fire hose right now, but like I said, this is an entire nutrition course. But we wanted to specifically focus on wheat, the value of wheat, the breakdown of what makes up a wheat kernel and why it's so valuable and beneficial to your overall health and your performance. I also want to tell you that here is a list of my references. Anytime that I'm researching and I'm looking for that edge to help my clients, I want it to come from sound references, my sources, and everything needs to be science backed and it needs to be solid. So I just wanted to share that with you. And I'm going to take it back to my Q&A section. And woo, Josh, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I just wanted to get through all of that valuable information. I'm going to be checking out the chat box to see if I have any questions, any feedback from you guys. All right. Thank you. Great information. All right, Josh, I'm
All
going to
right.
turn it
Thanks,
over.
Carol Ann.
Yes.
Yes, no, wonderful presentation. I think you delivered with so much detail that I don't think there's a lot of questions here, but we do have a couple. I did post one in there as well, directly to you. But let's start with this one here. Can the inclusion of specific foods like whole wheat in athletes' diets influence mental clarity and psychological well-being, which are essential for peak performance?
Yes. I'm so glad that that is a great question because when it comes to peak performance and mental clarity, if you're dealing with athletes and they're in an event and they have to be they're focused on winning, right? And so they need to have that clarity of mind. They need to not have that foggy brain. And so the vitamins and the minerals that are in wheat, for example, that B vitamin, which is awesome for metabolic production and breaking down of the carbohydrates in the body, that B vitamin is going to really help. Also, that betaine, that reducing of the inflammation. A lot of times we get brain fog and we get I call brain fog when we're not clear in our mind as an athlete. It's because of inflammation. And, and so that betaine in there to help reduce that inflammation, so powerful in those benefits of that wheat kernel.
Great, thank you. Um, Next one we have here is, can you please address your thoughts on GMO wheat? Less healthy, more folks seem to have issues with GMO plants.
Yeah, so it depends on that individual. It depends, everybody is so different and how they digest. So if you've got somebody that is sensitive to GMO, if you've got that's genetically modified, I get it. You just have to look at each individual. You've got some people that are not sensitive to it and it doesn't bother them at all. But then you've got people that are really hypersensitive to GMO. So you got to take that case by case and see how, and you'll have to experiment. Like the whole nutrition component in terms of timing and the event and whatever the activity is, you have to experiment. If it's an important event, so like if you got somebody running the Boston Marathon, you're not going to experiment right up to the date, right? So you're going to take that off season time to experiment with that and see how they do.
Perfect, thank you. Next one we have, I guess this is more specific, but what advice do you have for an individual who is gluten intolerant
So that's
or
a really
allergic
tough
to gluten?
question. Yeah, you're going to have to. Unfortunately, wheat is not going to be because gluten is found in wheat. So there are alternatives on the market. But wheat is not going to be one of them,
Mhm.
unfortunately. So you have your buckwheat, you've got your corn. You're going to have other alternatives for people that are sensitive to gluten.
Perfect, thank you. Um, Anything else out there? Anyone that wants to post real quick here? Sorry, I'm just scrolling through here.
So can I just ask, throw it in the chat if you felt like this was valuable. Did you ever consider, because I know we can be a touchy subject because of the gluten intolerance and the sensitivity and people saying, I'm going to cut out gluten from my diet. Did that, was that, throw it in the chat. Did you feel like it was helpful to you? Because it really is an interesting topic. Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Love it. Love it. Debunked some myths as well. I love that. Awesome. That's very good to know. Good to know. Yes. Yes, always been a wheat fan. Awesome. Fact. That's right, Teresa. Facts. Facts. Great.
Perfect. All right, I think
Wonderful.
that's all we have then, Caroline.
All right.
And yeah, just to kind of wrap this up, everyone. Again, thank you for joining today. Caroline, thank you for such a great and educational and informative presentation as always. Thank you, Wheat Foods Council, for helping make this webinar happen and for your support. Again, this webinar it was recorded and the on-demand link will be emailed to all registrants within the next 24 hours. Again, I'm hoping to get that out even yet today or first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you again, everyone, for joining this webinar and have a great rest of the day. Thank you, Caroline.